Welcome everyone. Before we dive in, be sure to check our previous videos, as well as drop your thoughts, feelings, and lessons in the comments. Like the video and subscribe so you never miss stories like this. Let's get into it. The night everything still felt whole, Darnell's tiny Houston apartment was full of laughter, Afrobeats, and the smell of jerk chicken. His wife, Nia, moved between the kitchen and living room, refilling glasses and straightening decorations. Their Spanish neighbor, Carlos, sat on the couch, coaching everyone through basic phrases. "Delo, despacio, bro," he laughed, clapping Darnell on the shoulder as Darnell butchered. "Estoy muy feliz con mi familia." They repeated silly lines. "Mi esposa te la fa, mi casa es tu casa," messing up the words, laughing until they cried, completely unaware how fragile the happiness really was. Darnell was 36, tall, soft-spoken, and the type of man people described as solid. He worked IT at a mid-sized logistics company, the one who fixed printers, reset passwords, and stayed late when servers crashed. Nia was 34, curvy with warm brown skin, always dressed like she was walking into a board meeting. To outsiders, they looked perfect. Black love, stable, no drama. They were saving for a small house, maybe kids one day. That night, as he watched Nia laugh with Carlos, Darnell thought, I really did it. I really built something peaceful. The peace started cracking when the company announced restructuring. Darnell's department was cut in half. His hours were reduced, his benefits downgraded, and every day carried a low buzz of anxiety. He applied for better-paying roles, but Houston's tech job boards felt like a brick wall. Nia began to change, too. Less patient, more irritated, constantly talking about leveling up and not wasting her prime years. She compared their situation to people on Instagram. Look at them traveling, buying houses. We're still renting. Darnell swallowed the shame, promising he'd figure it out. He just needed time. One evening, Nia came home glowing, like she was lit from within. "Babe, I might have a way to help you," she said, kicking off her heels. She explained that one of her clients, a big-name contractor, was looking for someone to oversee a new IT rollout. He's got connections, real ones. If I can get him to like you, that's a foot in the door. Darnell's chest loosened with hope. "For real?" he asked. She nodded, but there was a strange glint in her eyes he didn't know how to read, and he ignored it. The first favor was a late dinner. Nia said it so casually. He only had time at night. "We're meeting at that rooftop bar downtown." Darnell hated the idea, but didn't want to sound insecure. "You sure it's okay?" he asked. She rolled her eyes. "Darnell, this is business. You want a better job or not?" He laughed weakly, kissed her cheek, and watched her leave in a dress that felt too tight, too short, too deliberate. He sat on the couch afterward, TV murmuring in the background, stomach hollow, telling himself he was being childish. Nia came home around 1 a.m., smelling like expensive cologne that wasn't hers. Her lipstick was slightly smudged, hair a little messy. Darnell's heart started pounding, but he kept his voice calm. "How'd it go?" She launched into a story about networking contracts, putting your name in his ear. When he hesitated, she narrowed her eyes. "You think I'd risk it for some job?" He shook his head quickly. No, I trust you." She scoffed, heading to the shower. In bed that night, with her back turned, he stared at the ceiling, pretending he still did. The pattern began. "I'm meeting someone who can help you get into energy. I'm grabbing drinks with a guy who knows the hiring manager at that hospital. There's a contractor who's obsessed with IT security. Perfect for you." Each time, it was dinner or drinks, always at night, always alone. Nia would come back too late, dressed slightly askew, cheeks flushed. She talked about his potential new roles, like she was presenting a case study. Darnell swallowed his questions, telling himself that powerful men sometimes want attention, maybe flirted. He rationalized everything, bending the truth until it snapped. The more Nia went out, the quieter Darnell became. He tried to focus on applications, certifications, and side gigs. He started waking up earlier, reading tech blogs, taking free online courses. "If I just get better, I can make all this worth it," he thought. But small things cut deep. A text preview from a saved contact named Opportunity. A hickey half hidden under her makeup, the way she avoided eye contact after certain nights. He considered confronting her fully, but every argument they'd ever had ended with him apologizing. He was tired of feeling like a problem. Their friend group saw only the highlight reel. On weekends, they got together for game nights and cookouts. Nia's best friend, Tasha, and her husband, Marcus, were always around. Tasha was a nurse, loud and funny, the kind of woman who called everybody baby and love. Marcus worked construction, hands calloused, smile charming. They'd been married nearly 10 years. They admired Darnell and Nia's communication because they never fought in public. "Y'all so calm," Tasha always said. Darnell smiled, eyes flicking toward Nia, wondering what she told him about his supposed calmness, his quietness, his shrinking. At one Sunday cookout, held in their complex courtyard, Darnell watched Nia laugh too hard at one of Marcus's jokes. She touched his forearm, fingers lingering just a second too long. Something inside Darnell flinched. Marcus shifted away, almost guilty. Tasha didn't see it. She was busy passing plates and yelling at kids who weren't even hers. Darnell took a sip of his drink, hoping the bitter taste would distract him. Carlos walked by and yelled, "Mi hermano." Darnell forced a smile, answering, "Estoy cansado." Carlos laughed, not realizing that for once, the Spanish was perfectly accurate. The biggest opportunity came when Nia claimed she met a man who ran a major regional security firm. "He could basically guarantee you a spot," she said, tapping her phone excitedly. "Interview, benefits, the works. But he wanted to talk to me first, discuss details privately." The way she said privately made Darnell's throat tighten. "Does it have to be a hotel?" he asked quietly when she showed him the meeting location. She snapped, "You're jobless and picky now? You want pride or you want a paycheck?" He shut his mouth, feeling smaller than he'd ever felt. That night, while Nia left in a fitted red dress, Darnell sat at the kitchen table, surrounded by job rejection emails. He scrolled through old photos, vacations, birthdays, silly selfies. One caught his eye. The night with Carlos. Everyone mid-laugh. Nia leaning into him like he was the safest place on earth. He remembered her whispering, "I'm proud of you," in broken Spanish that Carlos tried to correct. He wanted to go back to that version of them. Instead, he stared at the clock as it crept past midnight, then 1, then 2, each minute confirming what he already knew. The rumors eventually slipped through the cracks Nia couldn't control. One afternoon, Darnell ran into a co-worker from his old job at a gas station. After a few awkward small talk minutes, the man hesitated. "Hey, no disrespect, but your wife was at that downtown hotel last month, right? With that older dude?" People were talking like... His voice faded as he realized the pain flickering across Darnell's face. Darnell laughed it off, saying something about networking, but the ride home felt like he was driving through wet cement. Every accusation he'd avoided was suddenly undeniable, suffocating. Even Carlos noticed something was wrong. One evening, he found Darnell sitting on the stairs outside their building, staring at nothing. "To do bien amigo?" Carlos asked, sitting beside him. Darnell forced a smile. "Estoy roto," he tried, remembering a word Carlos had joked about. "Broken." Carlos went softly. "Lo siento, hermano. If you ever want to talk, you call me." "Okay." Darnell nodded, throat tight. It felt strangely easier to admit pain in broken Spanish than in his own language. Inside, though, he still defended Nia. If he loved hard enough, maybe she'd finally stop. Maybe she'd remember him. Tasha began noticing things before anyone else. Nia's sudden upgraded wardrobe, the late-night ride shares, the excuses that didn't line up. She'd say, "Girl, why you always dress like you're going to club?" And Nia would laugh it off, claiming she had to look the part to convince these powerful men to help Darnell. But Tasha wasn't stupid. She saw the way Nia's eyes lit up more for attention than opportunity. Once, she overheard Nia on the phone whispering, "He doesn't even touch me right. You know I got needs." Tasha's stomach dropped. She realized she wasn't talking about the other man. The guilt gnawed at Tasha. She loved Darnell like family, He'd fix her laptop for free, helped her move, watched her kids when her sitter bailed. He was always steady, always kind. But if she was wrong, accusing her best friend could blow everything up. Still, the pit in her stomach didn't fade. One afternoon, she asked Nia directly, "Are you sleeping with these men?" Nia rolled her eyes. "You sound like him now." "I'm doing what I gotta do, Tasha. He doesn't satisfy me, financially or otherwise. At least this way, we both benefit." Tasha went quiet, horrified. The hotel discovery wasn't planned. It was pure, ugly coincidence. Tasha had been arguing with Marcus for weeks. Late nights, strange receipts, vague explanations. When a charge from a hotel downtown appeared on their joint account, she'd had enough. She lied, told him she was working a double shift, then drove straight there on her break. She rode the elevator with shaking hands, heart pounding in her ears. Standing outside the room number on the statement, she hesitated only once before swiping the spare key card she'd secretly taken from his wallet. The lock clicked and the door swung open. Inside, time seemed to slow. Marcus was on the bed, shirtless, tangled in white sheets. Beside him, equally undressed, was Nia. Her hair was mussed, lipstick smeared, eyes wide with a momentary flash of fear before her face twisted into annoyance. "Tasha, what are you doing here?" she snapped, as if Tasha were the one out of line. Marcus stammered uselessly. Tasha's lungs burned, but words finally burst out. "You've been sleeping with everyone, haven't you? Clients, connections, all while telling him his first career?" Nia's mask cracked, and truth spilled out uglier than any lie. "You want the truth?" Nia spat, voice shaking. "He can't even make me feel anything. Not in bed, not as a man. I'm doing what I want with people who know what they're doing. Telling him it's for his job just keeps him from crying about it." Marcus flinched. Tasha stared, horrified. She realized all those favors had never been about helping Darnell. They'd been about Nia chasing thrills and excuses. Tasha walked out before she hit someone, face wet, heart pounding. In the car, she sobbed for herself, and for Darnell, who still thought he just wasn't enough. Telling Darnell was the hardest thing Tasha had ever done. She came to his apartment that evening, still in her scrubs, eyes swollen. He opened the door, confused. "Everything okay?" She shook her head, stepping inside, hands trembling. "Darnell, sit down," she whispered. He sat on the couch, the same couch where he'd once practiced Spanish phrases, and dreamed about a house. Tasha's voice cracked as she described the hotel room, the sheets, Marcus, Nia, the years of lies. When she repeated Nia's words about him not satisfying her, he physically recoiled, like the sentence itself had slapped him. Darnell didn't yell. He didn't throw anything or punch walls. He just went very quiet, eyes glassy, shoulders slumped. Tasha reached for his hand, apologizing over and over, but he shook his head. "Thank you," he managed finally. "I'd rather hurt from the truth than keep bleeding from a lie." After she left, he walked through the apartment like it was a crime scene, tracking ghosts. Her laughter in the kitchen, her perfume in the hallway, their shared toothbrush in the bathroom. In the mirror, he studied his own face like he was meeting a stranger who had lost everything. When Nia came home, she found him sitting at the table with her phone laid between them. Tasha had sent screenshots, messages, receipts. Nia dropped her bag inside. "So she told you," she said, as if they were discussing a late bill. Darnell's voice was flat. "How many?" She shrugged, eyes cold. "Does it matter? You've never satisfied me. Not sexually, not financially. I got tired of waiting on a man who moves like molasses." Each word pressed into him like a thumb on a bruise. "You could have just left," he whispered. She scoffed. "And give up the benefits?" They agreed on separation that night. Almost clinically, she would stay with a cousin. He would keep the apartment. As she packed a bag, Darnell stood in the doorway, watching the life they'd built crumble into a suitcase. "Did any of it mean anything to you?" he asked softly. Nia shrugged. It was good until it got boring. That word, boring, echoed louder than her accusations about his body or his paycheck. After she left, the silence in the apartment was unbearable. He lay on the couch, staring at the ceiling, wondering how a gentle heart could be treated like trash. In the weeks that followed, Darnell moved through life like he was underwater. He went to work, applied for new jobs, answered texts with one-word replies. People heard about the hotel scandal. Whispers followed him at church, at cookouts, even in the hallway outside his apartment. Some offered pity, others thinly disguised judgment. Lena, a co-worker from his old job, reached out. She'd always admired his patience and kindness. "You don't deserve that," she said over coffee one afternoon. For the first time in weeks, someone looked at him like he was still worth something. It almost hurt more. Lena didn't push. She just listened. He vented, haltingly at first, then in a flood. The job loss, the favors, the lies, the hotel, the words about him not satisfying her. Lena's eyes filled. "She weaponized your gentleness," she said quietly. "That's not love. That's cruelty." A strange shift happened in his chest, a flicker of anger cutting to the fog of sadness. It wasn't explosive. It was cold, focused. For once, he allowed himself to think, maybe I wasn't the problem. Yet under that, a darker thought whispered, she didn't mind hurting me. Why am I still protecting her? One late evening, after an especially brutal day reading through divorce paperwork, Lena came over with takeout and cheap wine. They laughed more than they meant to, trading stories about bad bosses and ridiculous job interviews. When she reached across the couch to wipe a bit of sauce from his lip, something shifted in the air. Their eyes met and stayed. He hesitated, guilt rising, then remembered Nia's words, her hotel, her smirk. For once, instead of backing away, he leaned in. Their kiss was slow, hesitant, then hungry. It felt like reclaiming something and losing something else, all at once. Sleeping with Lena wasn't planned, but it wasn't an accident either. Every step was intentional, fueled by hurt and the need to prove, to himself more than anyone, that he wasn't broken, wasn't incapable of pleasure or connection. Lena was warm, gentle, constantly checking in. "Are you okay?" she whispered more than once. He nodded, even when his chest ached. The next morning, he stared at her sleeping form and felt both deeply comforted and deeply ashamed. He had become what he despised, unfaithful before the ink on the divorce was dry. Still, a part of him whispered, now she can't say it was just her. Nia found out through the same network of nosy people who tracked her own sins. She called furious. "So you out here playing victim while you sleep with some random chick?" she yelled. Darnell's voice was calm, eerily so. "I told her it was to help me get a better job," he said flatly. "That's what we do, right? Give our bodies for opportunities." There was a stunned silence on the line. "You're not built like that," she hissed. "You're too soft." He almost laughed. "Maybe I'm not as soft as you thought." For the first time, he hung up on her. The divorce finalized slowly, like a wound scabbing over. Assets were few. Arguments were many. Nia tried to paint him as bitter and unstable, but his calm response and quiet demeanor undercut her. People who had once judged him began to see the full picture. Tasha distanced herself from Nia completely, focusing on her own marriage counseling with Marcus. Darnell signed the final papers in a dim courthouse office, feeling neither relief nor anger, just a strange emptiness. Outside, the sky was overcast. He stood on the steps, thinking of the man who once proudly said, "Estoy muy feliz con mi familia." Months later, Darnell lived alone in a smaller apartment across town. It was quiet, but this time the silence felt chosen, not forced. Carlos visited once, dropping off homemade food and jokingly demanding Spanish practice. Darnell smiled faintly, repeating, "Estoy aprendiendo a vivir otra vez." I'm learning to live again, clumsily but honestly. His affair with Lena ended gently. She wanted someone less wounded, and he understood. He still carried the depression, the ache of being betrayed, and then betraying himself. But he also carried a new boundary. He would never again let love be an excuse for his own erasure. If you enjoyed this story, please comment, and share this video with your friends. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a powerful story drop.